Welcome to Screen Chat. I'm Neil Bashins, and this is the show where I sit around with friends and talk about film and television and all the related pop culture. This week with me, this is just again a two-man show this week.
Hey.
Warren Nightingale.
Hi, Neil.
Welcome. How you doing?
Doing really good.
Yeah.
Holidays are here. Life is good.
Yep. There hasn't been a Screen Chat in a couple of weeks now because of holiday schedules, but we are here to do the 2018 film year in review.
Yes.
And so that's why this is just a two-man show today because, we see a lot more movies than most of the other guests, I think.
I'd say you're pretty right. This is a record year for me, actually.
This is a record year for you.
Yeah. I just tipped the scales at number 70 in the theater. So usually I get up to about 50.
70.
Somewhere.
So you've done 50 or 70 as of today?
As of today, 70.
Including the ones we're going to see today? Or
Nope, that does not include the ones
okay.
we're going to see afterwards, of course, because what we're going to do.
Oh, well, hey, we're doing this and then we're doing a triple feature because, what else are we going to do but go to the movies?
We got time. It's holidays.
Yep. I think, I'm at 72.
Nice.
Sitting today.
Oh,
But my record is 85.
Wow.
That was back in 2016.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was a little bit insane. Someday I want to do 104 in a year to do average 2 per week.
I'll be in the seat beside you.
But that is a goal. But I got to still continue. I got to work on getting more of these comped, more free pre-screener passes and stuff. And maybe it wouldn't hurt to win something from the local cinema, movies for a year. That would really, they would hate if I won that. But yeah.
Well, when you do, make sure you ask for 2.
I will. Usually it's movies for 2 for a year. But
Yeah.
I guess they find couples buy more popcorn than single dudes, but yeah. So anyway, we're going to do a sort of a year in review here, go through. We're not going to cover every single film. I don't think we're going to go the box office one by one. We're just going to talk about some films that we have both seen. We have a huge overlap in what we've seen because we see a lot together, and even when we're separate, we see a lot of the same films. So we're just going to run down and we're going to bounce all over the place. It's not going to be in any order. It won't be by release date or anything like that. I've just sort of grouped things together as maybe they have a similar thing, and we can just hash these out.
Sounds good to me.
Awesome. All right. To jump off, and just as soon as I finish saying we're not doing it in any kind of chronological order, we are going to skip way back to last February and Black Panther.
Huge
movie. I'm not going to say came out of nowhere. I think a lot of people thought this would be a big movie ahead of time, but I don't think people thought, not even Marvel and Disney, how big it was going to be.
A significant movie. Just going back to February, just my memory of building up towards it, everyone was anticipating this film coming out, and then as it get closer and closer to dates, you start seeing things go viral. Here's a young class that all of a sudden they got tickets to go see the movie, and they're on their desks and they're dancing, and all of a sudden everybody's talking about this film. It was one of those moments where people are taking note, and it's a cultural phenomenon. And definitely one of the biggest films of the year for sure.
I think a bunch of the stars I saw, not just one or two of them. I think a whole bunch of them did stuff where they went to different cities and went to inner city schools and bought the whole class tickets, or bought 500 tickets and took a whole bunch of people. Yeah,
recognizing the significance.
It became a thing because this the first big studio superhero movie focused around a black character, around Black Panther, or any person of color, I think. And it became, like you said, a cultural phenomenon. It took off, and this was a juggernaut. It opened, just to pull numbers here.
Yeah. 202, I believe.
Its opening weekend was for a 2-day weekend, or the normal weekend was 202, and in the States, that was a 3-day weekend. It was the President's Day weekend. So for the 3-day, it did $242 million for the opening weekend.
Wow.
And I think it had a good hold. The second weekend, it dropped less than 50%.
Yeah, which is really unique because it was made for 200. Mm-hmm. So this would have been Marvel's first film in which it made opening weekend its budget back.
It made its production budget back the first opening weekend there. Yeah. And it chugged off to a total, worldwide total of $1,346,000,000 and change. That's huge.
And I think when people will look back at, the Marvel, what was this huge juggernaut of just this franchise of films that have come out, this will be one of the ones that they'll talk about for years to come, and the significance of what Marvel has done in terms of, now we're talking about a decade of storytelling, of being part of a universe, and how that is sort of shaping the landscape of cinema. There'll certainly be that part of the conversation, but another part of the conversation will be the significance of this film, of Black Panther, for sure. And even just how it's represented on screen. We're going to Wakanda, where it is, an Africa we haven't really seen on screen before, in the sense of, in the world of Tarzan, we don't see this kind of Africa that is in the future, or futuristic and technology based, and just rich in the people and the culture and the royalty and all these things of a world we've never been paid tribute before, which it does so well in this film. So in terms of the other Marvel films, it's, other than, I think, Iron Man, it's the only one to go over $1 billion that's like an Avengers-style team-up one. Wow. So, and like Iron Man had, that would have been like probably the second or third Iron Man, I think, and they had the build-up there, and they might not even have got this big. It's insane. And also, like, I think you have to go all the way back probably to like 1989, Tim Burton's first Batman film, to see the kind of cultural penetration that happened earlier this year with Black Panther, in terms of Chadwick Boseman, the star, said he couldn't go anywhere without someone crossing their arms in that salute he did in the film, and shouting Wakanda forever at him. People wanted him to say that everywhere, people saying that. The merchandise for a singular character of Black Panther, so much merchandise was all of a sudden out there, and just penetrating, and like we said, like stuff like the stars and people going out to special screenings and places, schools renting out whole screenings so that, young black kids could see themselves on screen how they'd never been represented before, except as like a sidekick character or the secondary character. Yeah. And dressing up for the event, like there's
people who went to dressing, cosplaying as characters, and also this thing happened. I read articles about at the time of all of a sudden just randomly just dressing up as their favorite black character from any movie. People dressing up as like Eddie Murphy from Coming to America, or people going out to it just dressing in traditional African garb, like and I really enjoyed it. It's probably in my top third of the Marvel movies, taking all the other type of stuff out of it, just looking at it as a superhero film.
Yeah, and it's a good film. Like it is a good superhero film. In these times when people are streaming and people are wondering the significance of what theater can do, that is what it can do. It is still a hub of what is part of our mirror of what society is and what we celebrate. To say that there are all these communities coming together to go to the cinema and celebrate it in that kind of way, you don't have people doing that and streaming it at home.
No. Right. That's part of what I love about cinema.
Absolutely.
Sitting in there with some friends, some family, and a whole bunch of strangers. And you're all sitting together in the dark, just having this shared group experience.
Exactly.
And just getting up afterwards and looking around at people and being like, the knowing nod between, maybe some other audience member that like, wow, that was something we just sat through, and that was really incredible.
Exactly.
But this was a great film and huge cultural impact. Obviously, Black Panther 2 is already rolling. Ryan Coogler, the director, and all the stars, well, except Michael B. Jordan, who got killed off into it.
But Ryan Coogler, what a great story he is. Like, it's just tremendous. Hitting the scene with Fruitvale Station all of 5 years ago when that was released, and it just being one of these highly recognized independent films, which was largely, if I have my facts right, Forrest Whitaker basically gave him lots of love and support because of the films that he was Coogler was doing in film school. That he gave him a shot, and he did that film, and went from that to all of a sudden redefining
the Rocky saga with
Creed, and then right from that to
Black Panther.
And so talk about the American dream, 10 years ago, here was somebody who just started to make student films. And now 10 years later, he's making one of the most significant films.
Shifted the landscape of film and culture.
One of the probably, I bet it's top 10, would you say, of all time for box office? Is probably somewhere in that, hovering in that range.
Yeah, I think it does hover in there somewhere.
And here we go, a decade later, he's done that. And so what a great story that is. Of course, one of the important films of 2018.
And this is a point that it would be a personal opinion, but I think really, in the year where we also saw the Avengers 3, the Infinity War released, I think Black Panther overshadowed it. At the end of the year, I more remember Black Panther than I do Avengers. Like, it was a bigger thing for me to go.
I think so to a certain degree too. Like, it depends on how you want to weigh it out. Like,
it's a personal thing. It'd be a personal choice. There's not any quantifiable way to say so. Yeah. Avengers made a little bit more money. Yeah. Well, more than a little bit. It made more money, not domestically. Worldwide, it made more money, but in North America, Black Panther still topped it.
Yeah, but and I'm not disagreeing because culturally, Black Panther absolutely it hits a deeper note. I just think people were very reactionary towards the snap. Like people seem to be very emotional about that, and even just talking to people about the end of Ant-Man and Wasp. Just that ending and how that sort of impacted them and brought them back to the snap. It's certain. There's a certain resonance that I think people had as a reaction to the Avengers film, like Black Panther. Yeah, no, I think it's more significant. Certainly true, but there's something about the Avengers and as flawed as that film is, I think there was like an impact it had.
There was a different thing there, and it was the culmination of 10 years of storytelling that came up to it.
Yeah,
but and I'm not saying, not to diminish it, but I just personally, I think the story of Black Panther release of the film, I think, slightly overshadowed. Possibly, as a story.
Yeah, and when we look back at all this, maybe
probably because we weren't expecting it necessarily.
Yeah, I think Black Panther will be one of those things that people will talk about. And when people will look back, let's say 10 years from now, about this. This last 10 years of films, they'll talk about the significance of that one in Marvel Universe, and maybe it's for the Avengers, it might be just a little too much to hold up. There's so much build up of a decade of building to this. Really, how can it deliver? And in a way, we might be,
and that'll be Black Panther 2. It'll be like, how do they match that again?
Yeah.
And you rarely will. Like, I don't think Batman Returns did as much money as Batman did. So it was a moment in time that you're not going to recapture. People will be excited for it when it comes, but it won't have that same thing. Shifting off to get to our second film of the day, we're going to talk about, also along a similar topic. We're going to talk about. I'd like to talk about Crazy Rich Asians, another film that stepped in. To an underserved market, in terms of North American filmmaking, I don't think there's another film nearly as big as this that served an all Asian cast, made by Asian people, written by Asian people for them.
Yeah, you'd be going all the way back to like early 90s with the Joy Luck Club. Yeah. Like, we're talking 25 years. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, maybe.
But that was not made in North America, though, was it?
I'd have to look it up.
Yeah.
I guess then...
Because it's foreign language, so...
Oh, okay. So then definitely be going all the way back to Joy Luck Club, which is 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, an underserved market that traditional Hollywood studios are kind of like, oh no, that's we don't usually do this. Wow, they are now going to do it because I think there's 2 sequels already greenlit. This thing took off.
Yeah.
Just to pull numbers again, it was here.
I think it opened at like 25 or 26 or something.
It opened at 26 million.
Yeah.
But then it didn't go away. Weekend, its weekend 2 drop was 6.4%.
Wow.
That's insane. Average drop on a film is 50% in weekend 2. This only dropped 6.4%.
That's insane.
Its third weekend was the Labor Day weekend.
Okay, yeah. Because, it was August release, right?
For a 2-day weekend, just for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it dropped 11.5%.
Wow.
If you go to the long weekend, it's add in the fourth day, it actually picked up. It was plus 15% when you put in the extra day. Insane. And so, it hung around there and just very entertaining. We saw it late. Like, we didn't see it. We saw it at the second
in November.
Feature. Yeah. And it had been one I kept wanting to see, and just something else kept popping up and stuff around that time.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad I loved it. I thought it was hilarious.
Oh, it's fun.
And I loved it. Like, just take all that cultural stuff out of it. Hilarious film, great cast, and I don't usually go to romantic type comedy type films.
Yeah.
But this was it transcended. It was just a fantastic, really, really funny film.
It was really funny, and it kind of introduced the world to a whole bunch of people, like the actor that played Nick, Henry Golding, I think his name is. This is his very first film. And
talk about setting your bar high first time out of the gate.
Yeah, and he just fits that character so well. I was thinking about it recently, going, you know what? We often talk about, fantasy casting of, okay, what do you think about this? If you're to all of a sudden get a hold of a franchise, who do you cast? And I was just thinking about this as I was, thinking about this podcast, going, you know what? If I had the Bond series, I'd cast him.
That would
that be
really
interesting?
That would be, yeah. Totally taking a different direction.
Absolutely, and I think he fit that character very well.
He did. He had a real effortless style and elegance he projected in there. That he could be a guy that he looked at home.
Yeah.
In a fancy tuxedo.
Totally.
Dressed like that, dressed around class and that, and driving fancy cars. But I could also totally see that dude being kind of a down and dirty tough dude too.
Oh yeah, and I again, if I had all of a sudden, the keys to the kingdom in the Bond universe, where I want to reinvent everything and take it in a totally different direction, I put my money on him.
Yeah, that's actually a cool idea.
Yeah,
that's that was amazing. Like I said, there's 2 sequels already greenlit for this.
Wow.
So
and good on them for taking it to the theater, because I think they had first out of the gates they were offered
to Netflix
as a
and they stood their ground and said, nope, we're going to cinema, and good on them.
Yeah.
And there was I think there was 2 legit, I almost fell out my seat laughing.
Yeah.
I honestly lurched forward. I remember one was a line that I'm not going to repeat for badly mangling it, from Aquafina.
And who's great. Again, I was not familiar with her until this film. I don't know where she came from, but she was so much fun. Bok Bok.
I remember it. Bok Bok, bitch. Yeah, that might have been one of it, but I think it was she was fishing clothes out of her car. They rolled up to a party, and she has clothes in the trunk of her car for every occasion. And she even had one labeled "Walk of Shame." Yeah. But then somebody said to her,
"Bar going, cocktail dress,
you keep
walk
cocktail
of shame.
dress in your car," and she said, "I'm not an animal." I almost fell out. And I've now remembered the second one, and I'm not going to repeat it because it's pretty raw, and I don't want to say it all here just in case. But you know what? If you haven't seen this film, see it. It is amazingly hilarious film.
And Constance Wu from Fresh Off the Boat, and Fresh Off the Boat is a show I've watched. I think I watched the first season, and since then I kind of watched casually. But she's definitely the best part of that show, and so all of a sudden to see this year for her to all of a sudden make the jump into films is nice to see, because I think she is somebody who should be there and stick around, and I'll be gladly pay my $10 to go see whatever she's in next.
Yeah,
so.
It also made me want to be rich, because this movie was very also it was very much like rich people
lifestyle porn. Lifestyles of rich and famous.
Oh yeah, you know it'd be cool at my wedding to have a stream run down the aisle. Yeah, what?
And everyone have the lights out as what is it, those lightning bugs?
Oh my god! And it's my understanding that this is not a made up thing. That there is this culture in uber
Singapore
rich people, in Singapore that is that is that affluence. And I was holy,
whole nother world, my friend.
They want to adopt a white guy right here. Okay. All right, let's punch up. Let's change gears up a little bit here, and let's talk about some smaller films.
Sounds good.
Start off with one that maybe later on we might decide to pick. I haven't decided yet. We might decide to throw out what's our favorite of the year, but one that would be in contention for one of my favorite films I saw this year. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. I'm talking about 8th Grade.
Mine too.
This was, wow, what an amazing little film made on a very tiny budget, and just...
Oh yeah, it's fresh. It is
very, very it felt raw and
enjoyable,
honest, and I don't have I don't really have interest into that world, but you being an educator were able to vouch for the authenticity of this film.
It certainly feels real to me, at least from the standpoint of an adult watching it. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if a student would be like, "Oh yeah, that's my experience" or not. But I do think it's some people's experience of going through school, certainly at this time, and it just felt real. Like the scene at the dinner table when Dad's doing his best to reach out,
talk to her, and she keeps having the earbuds in and out, and she's just getting annoyed with him. It felt so real. Yeah. The chemistry between the dad, I forget the actor's name, and the actress that played Kayla was Elsie something.
Elsie Fisher.
Fisher, and she's fantastic. I would not say it's that big of a stretch. I'm trying to think of what the other female performances have been this year, but I would throw her in for an award
I am
nomination.
so glad that she got recognized for a Golden Globe, and I know we talked about this quite a bit in one of the previous podcasts about this film. And my fear was that it was going to disappear.
Too early in the year.
Too early in the year. Too small of a film. It's not going to be on people's radars as you get through the big push of Oscar films that this time of year is. But I'm so glad because I think it is really well deserved. She just brings this real understated, honest, all through, the presentation. I remember when we talked about this on your podcast, you were really impressed with how they weren't going for the big notes. And that everything was very understated.
Yep.
It was all done through the tones and the awkward silences, and I couldn't agree more. And I just love the direction of this film. Bo Burnham, who directed it, this is his first film directing. I'm just so impressed. I can't wait to see where he goes with it. And he creates tension out of just the honesty of moments.
I think we probably talked about this. I know for a fact we talked about this the first time we talked about it on the podcast months ago. But I think the scene in the car, in the backseat of the car, is probably the best scene I saw, single scene in any film all year long. It affected me. Like, it had me almost
tension.
sick in my stomach because I was afraid for Elsie, or for Kayla, the character, and I was mad and I was on edge, and then I was so relieved when the situation resolved itself. And I cannot think of a singular scene that has affected me emotionally and got me to feel what it wanted me to feel better.
Yeah, it definitely had me squirming. A rival scene, I would say, and hope we'll talk about in a few minutes, is out of Searching in the first introduction. Mm-hmm. In terms of feeling emotions, in terms of feeling tension, I would agree with you 100%, because I was squirming in my seat and not knowing, because the story was so open in a way that it was kind of exploring everything all at once. You did not know where the story was going to go, and not knowing the director, what hands you were kind of in. Because there's certain filmmakers, you kind of get used to what they do, and you can anticipate, okay, here's the moment.
You know where their limits are.
Exactly, and you know exactly what they're going to push for.
Yeah.
And, Spike Lee, I would say, is one of them. And watching BlacKkKlansman again, I enjoyed a lot of that movie, and there's a lot of that movie I find challenging because I find his direction challenging. Also, he decides to, what I say is, heavy arm the story, and all of a sudden put in certain things that I'm like, okay, this now feels very much I'm getting hit over the head with a gun right now, which I find challenging.
But that's Spike Lee.
Yeah. But I know that going in, and I can enjoy the film and sort of protect myself for it. And in here, being that scene in the back of the car, with Kayla there, and not knowing the director going, I'm like, oh, where are we going? You better not be doing this. Yeah. It's almost like anytime they introduce an animal in a film, or a dog, let's say. My first thought is, nothing better happen to that dog.
Nothing better happen to that dog.
If you touch that dog,
if this dog's
I'm
dying,
this film
I'm going to
off.
flip my shit.
Exactly. I felt very much like that. I'd be like, okay, you better not be touching Kayla here, because if you do, I'm going to be really, really upset.
Yeah.
And just feeling that tension, and again, just her character and her reaction to that situation, being so honest of, when they're doing the truth or dare moment, and she says, well, I dare you to get this gum from the trash, or from this little thing. I just howled, because I was like, that feels like such a, that moment of dealing with students who are of that age, or, in one moment they're like young adults, and the next moment they're just like little kids, and you just have to, wow.
I would love, in my dream world, for Elsie Fisher to win an Academy Award for this.
Oh, absolutely.
So that she could go up, give a bit of a nice acceptance speech, and then say Gucci,
and do the little
do the little hand symbol she does there, whatever it is. I guess it's the thing that kids don't do anymore, because I've thrown it up at some kids at work, and they get upset and go, "Stop doing that."
Yeah, absolutely.
And that would be a really fun moment. But the whole film was fantastic.
Yeah, and including the other girl, the older girl, the Olivia, the actress who played her. She was fantastic. That character was fantastic. The dad was fantastic.
There was not a moment in there where I felt like they were pulling a Hollywood trick. I just felt it just felt this is a very real thing, and this could absolutely just be a slice out of somebody's life. There wasn't the Hollywood moment of now we're forcing a thing that in real life you'd never see. And there was never, the dialogue was all like, no, they just recorded dialogue at somebody's dinner table. It never felt like somebody wrote this on a keyboard. No, this is just people talking.
and the sound and the score supported that. I remember, I think there was bits of Enya in there as well. It felt so fitting with the camera work. That was just this real intimate and personal style, and it really worked for me.
And another a great real world story that ended up getting attached to this was in the States, the MPAA gave it an R rating so that kids in 8th grade, this could be about them, and it was so authentic, but they couldn't go see it. And then the producers, in a very smart marketing move, jumped on it and realized there was a loophole that if they weren't charging for it, then the MPAA could not enforce its ratings upon it. So they had, in I think 15 or 18 markets in the States, they had a bunch of free screenings where anybody could show up and just walk into it for free and see it for a weekend. And I
think it was on a Wednesday.
Was it on a Wednesday?
Yeah.
And they had sold out shows, and parents were taking their kids, and groups of kids were just going alone, and it just became a great thing for them to kind of thumb their nose at the MPAA and go, no, kids, it's about them, and it's very authentic, and why can't they can live it, but they can't watch it?
Yeah, and when you really see the film, you're like, okay, why exactly is this an R rating? Okay, there's some strong language, and I believe, if I have it correct, that if you use the F word more than once, or if you use it in a sexual context, then it gets an automatic R, and which is probably the reason why it did.
Yeah.
But when you watch it and just knowing kids in the world that they grow up in, it's kind of like, whoa, that just seems so out of touch.
Oh, the MPA is out of touch.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, I think when we talked about it previously, I mentioned just how cynical I was of the marketing, because I do think it was marketing first, but you know what? They're on the right side of history too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, hey, definitely was a marketing trick to get more attention to their film.
Yeah,
but,
and you know what?
But hey,
so,
not a bad
why
thing
not?
to do.
It's a small film, and if they can get people's eyeballs on it through the press as opposed to through trailers, why not?
Yeah. So another one there, and you dropped a reference to it a couple seconds ago there. Searching, another smaller film this year that I really, really enjoyed. I think its budget was $1 million. This was this starred John Cho, and it's about I don't know if a lot of people saw it, but it's a film about a girl that goes missing and her father trying to find her, and the entire film is played out on a laptop screen or on phone screens. The camera's never in the real world looking at characters. You're always just seeing them in video windows, and it's just shown through communicating through social media and stuff like that.
And and as much as it sounds as a gimmick, it actually, for the most part, worked very well.
They stuck with it.
Yeah.
It was an awesome intro, and I didn't realize
that
it going in.
I
just thought, like, the opening credits intro, I thought this was just how they were setting the scene. I did not realize until it was about 10 minutes in, they're not coming out of this. They're going for it, and they hung in there. And I forget now. I should have done better research. I think there's another film that tried this first a little
Unfriended,
bit before.
maybe
Unfriended.
Yeah.
But I didn't see it. But I don't think this would work 100 times. But in this case, it really worked for me. Like I was really interested and invested in the film.
Yeah, me too. And you say, for best scenes of the year, that introduction to the film was, for me,
the way it set their life, showing all and it showed the whole
and told
like
a story,
12 or 14 years of the girl's life and the family's life.
Yeah, told a story without any narrative, without any dialogue, and just through a series of clicks and what they're clicking and what they're labeling things, and all of a sudden what is something that's on the calendar, now they have to move that thing later in the calendar. It just was these emotional, hard-hitting beats that you're just like, wow, that's great storytelling.
Yeah, it was.
And for me, like, when it comes to those intro montages, I always think of the film Up as being one that's really, for me, a very emotional kind of encapsulating, setting the stage, that's done it really well. Run Lola Run's another one, I would say. And I would say this one's right up there with them, as, for me, it's going to be one of those great examples of, how to storytell by showing and not telling, and just let the images. And in this case, the images are very simple ones that are just on the laptop, but the context of what's going on
and the way it just flowed and was cut.
So good.
That opening was it's. I'm not going to say the highlight. Most of the rest of the film was pretty good.
Yeah.
But that was a standout moment. It kind of got away from itself at the end. In the writing, the story was the gimmick, so to speak, still worked for me right through the end. But like I said, the story got away from itself a little bit at the end. But overall, this was a film I enjoyed. I think probably just because it's different than anything I've seen. Yeah. But it was one of my more favorite experiences of the year.
And like 8th grade, it felt very fresh. I agree with it. And even there was some Because often, we see enough films that we kind of get ahead of the curve a little bit in terms of, okay, we see where the story's going.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few moments where I was like getting caught up in the story of, the little, I would say a little detour it takes with his brother. And I was just like, I was not ahead of it in terms of where that went, because all of a sudden, and what was nice was in the story, it was very logical how it all unfolded and where it went to and the reason why it went there. It was all very logical. I went, oh, okay, this is good.
Yeah, it did. I recall that now too, thinking back. Yeah, the storyline with his brother did have me guessing and going, okay, what? And the reveals, it really puts you in the main, like in John Cho's character's shoes. Like you were getting the information as he's getting the information. So you are basically getting the reveals as he gets them. And they kept it that way. It never got, in that terms, it never got too clever for itself that all of a sudden it tried to fool the audience.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just at the end, the turns it did take was
it was a little
pushed.
A little much now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it you know what? And so be it. But for the most part, it worked very well, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed it.
Another small film this year that didn't do a ton, but it was just a lower profile film. And again, you dropped a reference a couple of minutes ago there, was Green Book.
Oh, yeah.
And this one came a little bit later in the year. Definitely I think it had some award season hopes. I don't know if it got enough attention or maybe it just came out at a bad time. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely, and the acting is what the chemistry between Viggo Mortensen and
Mahershala Ali.
Their chemistry is amazing.
They were both really good. Yeah.
Oh, and Ali, oh my God, can that guy act? Like
he's good in everything. Like he'd be good in a Pantene commercial. I think. Like I'd probably roll a tear. But
his character from Moonlight is so polar opposite of what this character is, and just how he handles diction and how he handles his body posturing and everything. It's so rich.
He's a head to toe actor.
Oh yeah.
He doesn't just here. I'm changing up my accent a little bit or whatever. He inhabits a completely different character. He becomes a different character.
Absolutely, and he's got that great voice. I think I've referenced before how he's like a younger Morgan Freeman, like in terms of what he brings in terms of his presence. But I'd say he's got even more range. I just can't wait to see this guy's career over the next decades, to see what he does and where he goes with it, because he's got so much talent.
He does. I'd like to see him and Viggo in more though,
yeah.
like in a different thing, because they really had a lot of on-screen chemistry. And like Viggo's character in here was a little over the top.
Oh yeah,
he was a little ham-fisted. Hey, I'm Italian, but I think that's just the way they it wasn't him. I think that's the way the film pushed it, because the other Italian characters seemed to be a little bit like that too.
Yeah.
But still, even at that, like their chemistry was so great that I just wanted to see another film with them in it.
Yeah,
I hope they do work together again.
I would certainly line up to see that, and it was an enjoyable film. It had some big laughs.
So did I. And heartfelt. I never really felt like it didn't jerk you around at all. It didn't have to pander for fake moments to try to create emotional reactions. It all felt very organic to the story it was telling.
Yeah, and kind of that drive Miss Daisy, we get to sit in the back seat with them and watch their relationship develop and
evolve,
grow and foster and deepen, and all the better for it, because it was a nice little film that I'm sure come Oscar time it'll get a few nominations, whether it be for
I hope so.
acting or directing.
I hope so. I'm going to say too that in another kind of a way area that we have not discussed yet today, I think its marketing was pretty good.
Yeah,
because it did not give everything away. In the film, there were story turns that in another hands of different marketers,
that's true.
They would have put it out there going, and hey, this is it, and this is it, and this is the story, and you got to come see it, because look, we're hitting this button and that button, and we're catering to this. And it did things that were absolutely not telegraphed in the marketing, so it surprised me. And
I agree with you, especially in this year when it does seem we've had our share of films that were very marketed a certain way, and only for the experience of going to see the film, you're like, oh my God, I feel like marketing
gave it all away.
Yeah. Well, this is the entire film, or all the best parts of the film, or you know what? I'd rather go see the movie that was marketed than the one I'm actually seeing and watching through right now.
Or this one was, I wanted to see the film that was marketed, and then once I got in there, it had that film was there, but it also had a whole other wing to that house, and I loved all that, and it was a better film than it was marketed. But it was good in that. It's like, hey, we're giving you enough to get you in. Here's the dinner specials. Come on in. Now we're going to serve up the whole thing. We've also got some great drinks and desserts here. So, no, I thought it was really, the marketing on that was really fantastic, that I did not feel lied to or tricked into it or something like that. But
absolutely.
And yeah, again, probably one of my, in my probably top 10 of the year.
Oh, it definitely would be my top 10. Would it be my top 5? Maybe in my top 5.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe
I'd have to sit down and think that through.
Maybe we'll think that out and talk it out a bit later here. All right, we're going to change gears up again here. I think we're going to go to now, we'll talk about documentaries. This was a great year for documentaries.
Incredible year.
And I don't know if I just, in other years, have missed things, but it just seems like quite often documentaries weren't coming to our market, or it was harder. They would show up at Cinematheque for very limited runs, and if you didn't catch it.
Yeah.
But we saw some documentaries this year actually at our first run cinemas,
which was fantastic. Yep. I really do think this is a year in which more and more documentaries just had longer runs in theaters. I really do. And, in other years, you'd always, have the heavy hitter documentarians, guys like Errol Morris or Alex Gibney, and their name carries a weight behind it. Whereas, this year it just seemed that, there was just the value of the documentary itself. Was this a good film that would carry a weight? And I remember, like, for example, we saw Free Solo, and I was like, okay, we better see it on opening weekend because
it's going to be gone.
It's going to be gone. But
and it hung around 3 or 4 weeks.
Exactly. And I'm like, wow, that's
I'm glad
really
we
impressive.
saw it. And we'll jump in there. Free Solo. I should have written. Do you have the guy's name?
The filmmaker?
The filmmaker and the guy, the climber.
The filmmaker's Jimmy Chin. Is it Matt Turnauer?
That's it. I think it is.
I think it is. Yeah.
And this is a documentary shot over several years of a guy that free rock climbs, which is climbing mountains with no ropes.
Yeah.
And he wanted to be, I believe it's the first guy to climb El Capitan.
That's right. Yes.
In Yosemite National Park in the States, and this guy was a well-known, world-famous free climber, and the cinematography, the way they shot him with like long-range cameras and with drones and stuff, there was times when this movie legit scared the shit out of me that I thought this dude's taking a dive. But, I purposely did not read about him in advance, so I had a fairly good idea that he didn't die.
Yeah.
But I was not 100% sure that he didn't fall or get badly hurt at some point.
Well, and I think maybe that's why documentaries, is, kind of where we're at with it now, is because the technology of the type of things we can see, such as these great shots of El Capitan.
You couldn't have shot this 10 years ago.
No, exactly. As well as, and maybe not so much this documentary, but in other documentaries, such as Peter Jackson's one we're going to go see later today. Yeah. You just have this overwhelming wealth of material to work with, because we live now in a time and age in which there's going to be no shortage of footage we can actually go through and rifle through. I remember thinking that when I saw Amy a couple of years ago in the theater, the documentary about Amy Winehouse, and where so much of the footage was from her own camera that she shot as home movies and things. I was like, wow, this is an interesting time we live in, because it's not so much now, filmmaker says, oh, I'd like to make a film about X, and I now have to go and get my footage. It's more like now I can just corral what's already out there and start shaping my story. And then the technology we do use, I can have some really interesting photography done. So
this one had a lot of great shots, like down the mountain to really, like from above him, to really give you an idea of how far he had to fall. He slips, he's done.
Yeah.
But it was, and I was really on edge for a lot of it. They showed several scenes. They had stock footage, I guess, of other climbers that had fallen and stuff like that. And it was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But and I'm glad this is not going to be the same on a small screen. You had to see this on a big screen to really appreciate the cinematography of it.
Oh, completely.
Other documentaries, sometimes you can watch it because they're telling a story and it's okay, but this was really
a
important
big screen.
To see big.
Yeah, I agree. And documentaries, as a whole, it's tough to get 90 minutes of a story and to keep people, along and captivated. And the ones we've seen this year are like, another one that jumps off for me is Three Identical Strangers.
I was just going to bring that. Three Identical Strangers.
It fills the time in well, and there's lots of twists and turns to keep people, interested, or engaged with it maybe. But, and I think...
Three Identical Strangers was another one that I'd heard about it.
Yeah.
Like on some shows I watch, I'd heard talking about it, and I purposely did not research it. I did not. So I knew just in the broad strokes that it was about 3 identical triplets that were separated at birth somehow and found each other in adulthood. And it was the story of them coming back together. I knew nothing of the rest of the story, and it absolutely gut punched me a couple times, and I could sense it was about to go dark, but then it went really dark, and it's a true story, so it's not like they're it's jerking the strings or whatever. No, and it was a hell of a story.
And it crafted the story very well. It hit the beats that it matched with your your typical reveals that you would have in a film at the right times. That it made it very very engaging, and that's one of my faves.
I don't want to give it away on thing. I just want to say that if you haven't seen this, look for it. Check it out. Hopefully it shows up on Netflix or something or some other streaming service, but it's worth your time. It is a messed up story, but it is a really good story.
I'd pair it with, have you ever seen the movie The Imposter?
Not familiar, don't think so.
It's a documentary from a few years ago about a child who went missing from somewhere in Texas. I want to say Austin, but I could be wrong on that. Then all of a sudden shows up in Spain. And it's the film Changeling with... what's her name? Angela Jolie was based on that case.
Oh, okay.
But I would say Three Identical Strangers in that film, but with the twists and turns it takes, it's very comparable and it's enjoyable and a good double bill.
Yeah, so absolutely check out Three Identical Strangers. To close out the third documentary we saw this year, which I heard about ahead of time, I knew it was going to be coming out this year.
Yeah.
And it's the one, like, I was like, I really want to see this. I really hope, and I did not hold out a lot of hope it was going to show up in our market. So when it did, I got so excited. It was Won't You Be My Neighbor?
Yeah.
The documentary story of Mr. Rogers. And man, if you're having a bad day, sit down and watch this, because you cannot possibly feel bad about it is impossible to not at least feel better about shit after watching that. This is a story about someone that, this isn't like story, we know stories of other celebrities that I don't want to name off here that, we grew up with them thinking they were really awesome and sweet people, and then you find out these dark sides to them. Mr. Rogers didn't have a dark side. There is not one skeleton in this dude's closet. He's just a really awesome guy.
Yeah, and I, never really... Like my whole world around Mr. Rogers, because growing up I did not have PBS.
No, I was not a Rogers kid growing up. I knew him.
Yeah,
I'd probably seen it I'd watched it a little bit, but I was a Captain Kangaroo kid growing up, and Mr. Dress Up kid. Mr. Dress Up was my primary, and Captain Kangaroo would have been a secondary one.
Yeah,
but
Friendly Giant.
I think there was that second tier. What would be Friendly Giant, Romper Room, and welcome to Toddler Talk.
But Mr. Rogers, I never really had access to until I was in my teens, and so I already was way past that market. So I never really paid that close of attention. And then this is going back about 10 years. I was working for a nonprofit that was centered around media literacy, and so then I sort of got engaged a little bit with the Fred Rogers Institute that is out of Pittsburgh that does a lot of media literacy, and so I was kind of, that's really cool. He kind of he's very invested in terms of media education and, the influence of media on children and things like that. But this film's brought that all together for me, where I'm like, oh, wow, he was really invested in not only, making kids feel special, but, dealing with what they need to deal with. Educating and the impact of media and all these aspects that I really,
he was really a visionary in realizing what TV could be, and that you could get a message out to that many more people. Yeah,
and there's some wonderful scenes that are just like, wow,
the scene where he's addressing Congress.
Yeah, this is great.
Fighting for the funding for public broadcasting and why it's important.
Yeah, and the hard-hitting scenes of all of a sudden talking about death on the show. And,
how they didn't shy away from real-life stuff.
Exactly, and dealing with
race issues and sexuality and stuff.
And so it's a really, it's definitely a really great documentary. And I'm hoping for it because the filmmaker, Morgan Neville, he also did You'll Love Me When I'm Gone, or When I'm Dead.
When I'm Dead?
When I'm Dead.
Oh, really? The Orson Welles documentary that's on Netflix.
So
accompanying Other Side of the Wind?
Exactly.
Oh, okay, really? I did not know that.
So he's the same filmmaker. And talk
two
about
in 1 year,
two in 1 year.
Because that was also a really good one that I saw on Netflix, unfortunately. But
yeah, but what a great year for him. So I'm hoping for, just based on those two films this year, that he gets a nomination and an Oscar and a win, because what great filmmaking.
Yeah, it really was.
The two.
And so that was really great to be able to see three documentaries this year. Gonna change gears again here, and we'll switch back. Let's talk about now a couple films that did not hit the mark for us. We've been talking about a lot of films we loved. Let's talk about now. The first one up is I'm going to talk about one, The Meg.
Oh my god!
Now, when I initially saw the posters for The Meg, and no secret, this has been talked about many times on the show. Probably my number 1 or 2 favorite film of all time is Jaws. So I love me some shark movie.
Yeah.
But you're never going to remake Jaws.
Nope.
And so I am quite happy with everything else to be somewhere between parody or goofy or whatever. And I initially saw the poster, and it was just this giant shark coming at a beach. And they had some great taglines. They had, I think, "Nice to eat you," and "Opening wide," with the shark mouth opening.
Yeah.
So, and then we started seeing trailers. And the initial trailer felt like this is exactly what I want it to be. It felt like it got itself. It understood we are going to be a cheesy shark movie where a giant-ass prehistoric shark eats the shit out of people.
Yeah.
I want to see ridiculously gory beach scenes where just hundreds of people are getting gobbled up. I want to see... And this is how the marketing went. And it totally projected as if like everybody's playing serious, but all not afraid to throw a wink at the camera. And we know what we're making here. We're making a giant shark movie. And I was so up for this.
Yeah. Well, especially after, let's say, a decade of sci-fi movies that are absolutely ridiculous. Sharknado 1 through whatever they're at now. And, all those others, ones going, how can you really take it seriously?
No, it has to be taken with a grain of, come on. Yeah. And that's what we wanted. And that's what they marketed.
Yeah.
And then we sat down and watched a film that takes itself so seriously that I wanted to kick the chair in front of me. I was like, what the hell? It was so... And it would lead you to those moments of where you wanted, like, I think twice they had a helicopter hovering over the water. Yeah. And you're like, this is where a giant shark comes out of the water and eats a damn helicopter. And that's what I wanted. Nope.
Well, yeah, even just the carnage.
It cruised at the beach and ate one person. Yeah. There was literally thousands of people in the water, and it ate one person and then buggered off.
Because I got a dinner bill from somewhere else, and I'm like,
I don't eat one French fry and push the plate away.
Yeah.
I eat the fries, even if I just got a dinner call from. I'm eating the fries. Okay, come on.
Yeah, it's now my expectation for the film really wasn't.
I let myself be led by the nose. I was so hopeful that this is what we were getting, and I'm like, yeah. And like Jason Statham, it's Megalodon, and I'm like, yes, we're gonna do this. This is gonna be so amazingly fun. And it was not. It took itself so damn seriously, and
there's something about that, like that early August release date where we've had over the years all these other films that like the Piranha ones and things like that, where you know what, we want to have that, not take ourselves too seriously beach kind of stupid kind of movie, and it, just that total escape kind of film. But you're right, it did take itself very serious.
It missed the mark. I don't have the numbers. It made some money. I don't think it did incredibly well. It did. I think it kind of middled. That I think it made its budget back. I don't think it didn't lose money, but it didn't make a ton. I hope we don't see another one. I won't be up for another one. They won't get me a second time unless I get a free preview screener pass. I won't pay a second time for this. But I was really disappointed because I thought this is one I was going to see 3 times because it was going to be so much carnage and so fun and so stupid and just lean into that stupidity. And the marketing led me there, and it absolutely did not.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, I wanted to see the film they marketed, not the one they gave me.
Yeah, and I would say another film that does that for me is Welcome to Marwen.
Welcome to Marwen. Yep, that's the next up.
Yeah, and to be honest, that one I'm disappointed with. Where the Meg, I'm like, okay, you know what? I was kind of hoping it'd be something, and it's not. But my expectations weren't that high, so I'm going to walk away, kind of a little frustrated, whereas Welcome to Marwen, I actually walked away a little bit mad in the sense of...
I would say for me, it's a different kind of disappointment. Because with the Meg, I was expecting this fun, goofy carnage movie.
Yeah.
I didn't get it. With Marwen, in the marketing, I thought we were going to get something that was probably going to jerk a tear out of me, punch me in the gut a bit, and it did not.
And it'd be thoughtful, and Robert Zemeckis is behind it, and he has that tendency to have a thoughtful Christmas kind of. Even though this is not a Christmas film, but it's released at Christmas time, that sort of that Forrest Gump kind of feeling, and it certainly wasn't anywhere near that. And in fact, there's moments where I felt like it was really out of touch with kind of a modern audience, and going. It talks about things like, having an affection for females, but yet all the females in the story were nothing more than objects through the perspective of the main character. And I'm like, this does
and
not
it's so
feel
weird. I didn't think about this till now, but it's so weird that not in every case sexually objectifying them, but it does objectify them as things in his life.
They still
and
objectify.
they are actually represented on screen by dolls. And I didn't make that connection until just now that it actually literally
still objectifies,
and metaphorically objectifying them.
Exactly, and that's where I'm like, this doesn't feel like the film that I was, that I was expecting, and it's certainly, there's a few other things in the film that I was getting pretty upset with.
Yeah.
The other piece being how it is handling mental health
and addiction
and
to
addictions
medication.
through medications, and how this was something that had to be overcome. Yet, for a lot of people
it's
in
not.
this,
It's
in
a
this world,
necessary thing to help them balance. And
exactly. And I thought, this,
and it didn't do anything in that terms I regard of saying for this guy maybe it's wrong.
Yeah.
It was just like it's an evil thing to be conquered.
Exactly. And now the film I was expecting to get, I thought, okay, this is going to be kind of interesting. We're going to see a journey of someone recovering, and these are the people who are helping his lives, and that's how it's going to be represented in the world that he presents with his dolls and his photographs. And that was in the film. The film already jumped forward to a position, and I think this is the fault of the film, is that it did not know the story that
it wanted to tell,
or at least the important story there. Like, because when I was watching the trailer, I'm like, oh, interesting. Like, there's the bit with him kind of trying to recover and trying to walk again.
With the physical therapist.
With the physical therapist.
That was her whole thing.
That was her whole thing.
Her whole part was in the trailer.
Exactly. And I was expecting them to have a relationship where she's kind of like the coach. She's kind of like the Obi-Wan saying, you must, lean into this to overcome what you need to overcome. And so what we see in the trailer was basically a flashback in the film, and the only other representation of her is the dolls. And there was so much dealing with the dolls that I felt like it did not grip what the story could have been. This guy recuperating and finding a way to move forward with his life, of the life he lost. And I don't know, I just felt really frustrated with watching that film.
When we came out of the theater, you actually commented on the day that this would have been a better film with like a quarter of the budget.
Exactly.
Made as a small indie film. And
exactly.
I absolutely could not agree more that this would have been better with no CG, with just looking at the dolls and letting, maybe him talking with them or representing and him using them to play out his situations and help him cope. Yeah. But no.
Him talking to the dolls, him setting up or rather than the CG, just have him capturing the dolls on film, and then him adding the sort of the dialogue of what that scene is, as opposed to them carrying it out. Because the opening sequence was actually quite intriguing. I was quite intrigued with that opening sequence, but the more I saw the dolls,
the less it meant and the less I cared about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I was like, we're just substituting this for actual storytelling.
Yeah. And it felt, some of it felt like filler, and some of it felt like, okay.
And then subsequently I went and I sort of read up about it, and they didn't, and this is not very representative of his story at all, in my opinion. Like, it's a very tiny slice of it, and definitely made to be, hey, we're going to Hollywood this up. And that happens with all biopics, but this one, I felt, they didn't tell the story properly.
Yeah.
There's a documentary called Marwan Call about him, and I'd much rather see the documentary. And I would recommend, I'd say to people, skip this and try to find the documentary instead, because it looks a lot better.
Yeah, and walking away, that's exactly what I wish for. I think I may even commented at that point, I didn't realize there was a documentary on it, where I just said, oh boy, this would have been a better documentary than film.
Yeah. I'm glad I didn't see the documentary first.
Yeah.
I would have been even more disappointed in the film in the theater.
And and there's things that it could have leaned into in this time and place. Like, we're talking about, this year in reflection, where, in the theater there's, diversity well represented, and maybe not well represented, but at least represented better than it has in the past. And here's a film that leaned away from some of the diversity that it could have done, where, you know, he, as an artist, is someone who's also a cross-dresser, but they dialed that back. As
To
you
just,
were, you were
to
mentioning
just
earlier.
wearing
And-
women's shoes.
and that's unfortunate, because I think, you know, in this day and age, and this is what I think it maybe it's a little bit out of touch, is that I think audiences don't want, they want authenticity more than they
Not
want
watered down.
Yeah. And so it's unfortunate, because I think
Could have been something really special.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, let's change gears again completely here. Hope nobody's getting whiplash. Let's talk about a couple of animated films that came out this year.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Let's kick out first a sequel, Incredibles 2.
Yeah.
15 years in the making? We
Yeah.
were waiting 14 or 15 years since the original?
Exactly. And what's so neat is, you know, just knowing people in their 20s and 30s referring to this film as, oh, finally something from my youth, you know, or just reflecting, oh, great, I get to revisit my childhood.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, that would actually
It
line
would
up.
be, yeah. It looked great.
Oh, yeah. The animation was
the
fantastic.
animation was fantastic. I really liked looking at it. And the story, I felt like I was having deja vu, because it's basically the same story from Incredibles 1.
Yeah,
And I guess
you just flipped it around.
I guess since we had waited 15 years, they didn't feel afraid to just tell the same story right away again. And not as many people seemed to notice that, because it had been such a long time. But yeah, overall, I was not as engaged with it. It was just like as if I just went to see Incredibles 1 again.
Yeah, and in fact, you know what, even just from my memory, it's hard to keep it straight, which is which film in a certain sense. So what happens where, other than the fact that, you know, in the first one it was more about him, and the second one was more about
They just
her.
sort of swapped their roles.
Exactly.
But so much of it was just the same. And so the biggest amount of entertainment I got out of this was just the look of it, the craft. It was Pixar, so it's really, you know, well done and looked awesome. But that was it. It was, you know, a very shallow spoon for me.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, I was absolutely blown away a couple weeks ago by Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This was an awesome movie.
And seeing it from the trailers, which was about a year ago now,
Yeah,
I think.
almost. We saw the first trailers probably sometime
like February, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going, oh, wow, the animation really...
The style of it looked really cool.
Really interesting.
And that's what I was mainly anticipating for it, going, I don't know what the story's going to be like. I don't know if they're making it for kids or not, but I really like the look of it. So I was amped up to see it just from the look.
Yeah. And the fact that they're going to be doing a Spider-Man about Miles, I'm like, oh, okay, that's pretty sweet. That's going to be awesome. I cannot wait.
You're looking at a different Spider-Man here, the Miles Morales, who is a biracial. He's Hispanic and black.
Yeah. And what's great about this film is it just seemed to be picking up steam. And even beyond just the interest of the look of it and things like that, people were really excited
I was
for it.
getting so excited for it that then the week leading up to it, I was almost nervous. I'm like, can this possibly be as good as I want it to be? It was better.
Yeah.
The story was just as good as the craft. That I thought the writing of it and the story was so engaging to me. And it was not like a super deep story, really, but it had some good things in there. It had a good father and son storyline between Miles and his father. And it had also, with the other versions of Spider-Man in there, they had a great gimmick for tying them in. The way they introduced, I was like, well... I'm probably going to know what all these people are, but does the casual audience know? But they had such an awesome device where they had each character address the audience and introduce themselves.
And did their background story, which was such a great, you know, and it really is a good comic adaptation, because in all these comics, of course, there's a million different universes. And so they naturally tell a story in which these universes come
all
together.
Collide and get together. Yeah,
and they all each character gets this origin story, and it's done in a way that was, you know, quite clever. You've seen it before, but it was really fun to see the way that it sort of was revealed was really...
It was
really great.
And the art style did not get old. Like
No.
It wasn't like 10 minutes in, I'm like, okay, this is worn off. I've seen it now. Is there a story? The art kept impressing me throughout, and they did so many cool things and things I didn't know about. Like I don't think I was consciously noticing them. I want to see it a second time to watch them again, because I've gone and done some research about it too. That they did stuff like the background. Now I noticed it blurring a couple times, and it was a thing. And
like
that,
down the alley, and also the cop car goes by.
and that was a referential that in the early 80s and the 70s sometimes, because the printing processes for comics were not always top shelf, that at times the panels would be blurred just from bad printing, and a lot of comics just shipped like that. And this was them
no way. Really,
referencing that. And apparently some of the art is also done in the style of like the dots. So instead of being completely colored in, it's got those like tiny dots that just creates the optical illusion to your eye that it's all filled in.
Yeah.
And there were different art styles mixed in there, like Spider-Ham is just hand-drawn animation put over the other stuff. I'm trying to think. There was something else too. Oh, I loved too that they threw up thought bubbles and text blocks on the screen sometimes and sound effect blocks. It was so awesome. Yeah. And it created a really great thing too was when Peter Parker Spider-Man teaches Miles Morales Spider-Man how to swing properly, and he says, and you just thwip it out, and because that's the sound effect that's always been drawn in the comic books, and you just thwip it out, and you thwip it out, and they thwip kept showing up on the screen. Another one that I caught, and not everybody's caught this, but Spider-Man throws a bagel at a guy in here. And
that's right. Yeah, it's running through the thing. Yeah.
And when the bagel hits the guy he throws it at, the word bagel pops up on screen. Which I was like, did that just say bagel? That. And then I kind of forgot about it. And I'm like, and then because then the next thing happened, and then people commented about online that when it hits the guy, it creates the sound effect bagel. It's like that's awesome. But no, really, really, start to finish, absolutely fantastic, entertaining film.
Yeah, and I'm not familiar with Spider Noir, but also I'm like, oh, you know what? I might have to pick up a couple of issues of this just to kind of dive into that world because it looks super cool. So it's not only is it clever in terms of bringing this all together for a story, but also to give people a little bit of a deeper access to kind of what else is in this universe. So, okay, let me ask you this then. We talked a bit about 8th grade, equally one of our favorites.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know what you think about Vice.
I liked Vice, but it's not as good as The Big Short.
Oh, okay.
Not for it not being... I saw it on Christmas Day. I enjoyed the performances. I like all those actors. Yeah. And I really like... Damn it, what's the director's name? I've lost his name off the top. Adam McKay. Adam McKay. I really like his filmmaking style. And this has the similar style.
Well, yeah, it basically is redoing
the Big Short of where it's surreal at times and stuff going on.
Breaking the fourth wall.
Exactly.
And I really very self-conscious of itself.
The only and why I liked The Big Short better was I think I was more interested in the subject matter. The Big Short was about the housing crisis and like the financial crisis in the States. This was about Dick Cheney and about like the one-time vice president of the United States and American politics, which I'm not very well versed on. I wasn't very well versed on the housing crisis either, but it really laid it out, and it was a more concentrated story, The Big Short. So it showed this one problem that happened in a very few specific amount of years, and it explained it for you.
So more of because the source material was probably drawn
exactly.
And if I'm not mistaken, the book is kind of laid out that way too, where it's kind of done in that little bit of style.
It's a much bigger story. Yeah. It tells the story of his rise to power from the 70s through the 2000s, and because it's told over such a longer period of time and it's such a big story, obviously it's going to leave some stuff out or it's going to speed past some stuff. And so because I'm not informed on the subject matter, I think somebody who's more read in, not to say that this film has required reading for it, but if you are more familiar with it, I think you would enjoy it more. If I had been more educated about it previous to it, I would have enjoyed it more. So it's not like it was not poorly written. It's just the story itself that is at the heart of the film did not engage as much with me.
No, I would agree that The Big Short's probably a little more cohesive in terms of how the style sort of fits it, and this feels more like McKay found a style that works for him, and so he superimposed it on this. Like I do think that. I do think his style though is he's tapped into something that kind of works for him.
And the actors say he's got a very improvisational style on set that he basically just lets them go with it, and he lets them be a bigger part of forming where the story's going to go and informing the film. And I think that works, and I really like that because it allows fantastic artists like Christian Bale, Steve Carell, Amy Adams to do all kinds of Sam Rockwell, another favorite. Not as big a role in here, but I love Sam Rockwell. Hot damn! I love Sam Rockwell. So I really enjoyed the performances, and like I said, where it lost me a little bit was just the story was not as much for me, and I wasn't quite as involved with the subject matter. Where in The Big Short, the subject matter really fascinated me, so I was really paying attention.
Yeah, and but I do think I think I probably enjoyed Vice a little bit more than you did. I did go to see it. So
I did not. Yeah.
So that way I could throw it out here.
Fantastic.
In terms of,
and
I'll use it as a distraction, so we don't have to talk about Drastic.
I was about to get off it anyways, but that's fantastic. But no, I did like Vice.
What I liked quite a bit about it was of course it's satirical, which I love, and the fact that it sort of uses these moments, and it uses the allegory of fly fishing, in that sequence where he's talking to George W. Bush and he's kind of baiting him, and it was very heavy-handed in terms of its intercutting of a fishing sequence. I did enjoy that, or the sequence where they're at the restaurant and they're ordering off the menu. Hey, gentlemen,
that was a fantastic scene.
Yeah.
Alfred Molina
comes in as the waiter and says, "Hey, gentlemen, what do we have this evening?"
And as it progressed, I love that scene. I love McKay's style, McKay's style of filmmaking.
Yeah,
and I would absolutely be up for another one of these, about a different subject matter.
Yeah.
Maybe I might, the next time I see one of his films coming out, I might do some pre-reading, so I might educate myself to better know the story and have an entry point into it. But
yeah. And the acting is great.
I might like this better on a second watch. Like I said, the thing is, because it was just so big, for me, it was the story was a little bit too big for me to wrap my arms around, because I was so ill-informed about it. So I just was like, I'm not going to get all the story. I'm just going to enjoy the style. And I really loved the style.
Yeah. And for me, because I would say during the timeline of which, the majority of the film was taking place while he was in office, there was a timeline in which I was watching lots of, The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. And so there was a lot of this sort of connecting type of things, like the whole incident about, him shooting the shotgun. Right. And so you're just
they really sped past that in here, though. They did not really make it that big a deal.
Yeah. And so, but there's those kind of moments where it's just, kind of, sort of you touch base with that, and it's just like, okay, this is kind of interesting. And I really, and I actually, most films that has a narrator, I really don't care for. This I did like quite a bit, because where it led to and who it was.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting.
And the overall connection. And then it sort of kind of makes some implications where you wonder if that's what they're really trying to say or not. And I'm not going to say anything about what exactly that is, because it'll be a spoiler. But and of course Jesse Plemons, these days I'll watch anything with him.
Jesse Plemons is everywhere.
Yeah, and he's fun. He makes whatever material he's working with that much more fun to watch. Like, ever since I first saw him in Breaking Bad, and then subsequently and so many other things, that he's always enjoyable to watch.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Did you see Game Night this year?
I did not see Game Night.
He's good. He's worth watching just for him. So.
Yeah, that was one I missed that I'd wanted to see, and somehow just slipped away on me. One I did see that was one of my favorites of the year, Mission Impossible Fallout. Probably, when I go to cinema, I like all kinds of stuff. It's like going to the buffet. Sometimes I want to have a steak, sometimes I want to have a burger. This was the most awesome burger I've had in 10 years. This was an awesome balls-to-the-wall action film, and it's probably one of the best action films made in the last 10 years.
Well, it's certainly a franchise. This franchise is actually
keeps getting better as it goes along.
Yeah.
Amazing action, and I think that much more appreciated by the fact that they don't use a ton of CG. They use CG in here to it's like a spice, and they just use it to accent what they're doing. But most of the stunts are done legit, and Tom Cruise badly broke his ankle doing this. Learned to fly a helicopter so he could be in a helicopter flying with cameras filming him doing it for no reason other than because we know it's real. It then gives you that in the back of your head in the theater, like, well, I know Tom was out doing press, so I know he doesn't die doing this, but holy shit. And I think I saw it 3 times. I love this film. It's not going to be as good on the small screen, but I think I'm still going to love it. But I love this movie.
And so we talked a bit about marketing earlier, about, you're watching a film, you're not quite getting what you see. I would say here's a good example of a film that's really well marketed and marketed cleverly, that when when you see the film, you see the film that you were marketed to, but also done in a way in which doesn't reveal a whole lot. And I'm thinking about the cuts where there's that great action sequence that takes place in the washroom, right? And the way it's cut in the film, you sort of think it's it's a fight between these two particular characters, but
really it's not.
When you watch the film, it's actually there's a little more depth to it. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of
the first trailer for it was really fantastic. It was really had awesome energy, and it was really kinetic, and it gave nothing away. And I didn't even think they needed to put out a second trailer. And the second trailer started to give a little bit of the story away, thinking, oh, people need to know what they're going to see. And I could have done without the second trailer. It didn't ruin it for me, but it did give a little bit more away. But the first trailer was really dynamic. And it also contained, for me, I will say that as a cinematic moment of the year, I loved Elsie Fisher in the car scene that we talked about earlier in 8th grade. The scene where Henry Cavill pumps his arms in what's been dubbed the reload in the fight scene in the bathroom is one of the most kick-ass things I've seen in a movie in so long. I was like, damn, that's cool. To the point where, like, me and a fella I work with, my friend Errol, we started, he saw the film and he loved it too, so we started doing this fist pump at each other at work because it was so awesome. That was so cool. That was so he's reloading. Henry Cavill's arms are so deadly, he needs to reload them when he fights. I was like, that is so awesome. But that was one of my favorite things of the year. But yeah, great
action right from the end of the film to the next. And I can't remember the running time of that film.
It was almost 2.5, I think.
Yeah,
but it felt like it was edited. Very kinetic. It did not drag at all.
Yeah, it was really well crafted in that sense.
Just going to stop right there for a second. Past here, Warren and I start talking about Bohemian Rhapsody and A Star is Born, two films that we both love, and I get so excited that I just end up spoiling the shit out of both of these movies, particularly A Star is Born. They're both awesome. I highly recommend both films, but you probably want to stop the podcast here, go watch these films, and then come back and listen to the rest of the show so that you don't have anything ruined for you, okay? Everybody's been warned. Past here, there'll be spoilers.
All right, another one that I really love this year to totally change gears. As we got later into the year, A Star is Born.
Oh, yeah, we haven't talked about Star is Born.
Star is Born. This is the fourth version of this film, the first version I've ever seen, but now I really want to go back and watch the earlier versions. I hope they do like something at Classic Film Series in this year.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah, this is going to have a lot of...
This is my favorite one of the three, though.
This has a lot of awards attention already. It's going to get nominated for a lot. Lady Gaga in her first acting role, I believe.
Well, she was in American the horror series, American Horror Story.
Okay, in a small role though.
Yeah.
Okay, so this would be her first feature lead role, and I thought she was fantastic. Some people were knocking it. Oh, well, she's just playing a version of herself or just playing a music star. That's right. Come on. Even you've watched people play themselves and they stink. Like Howard Stern literally played himself and he sucked. Okay, so no, standing in front of the camera is not just being yourself.
Yeah, and I would say that she's got some great big moments where she's wearing it on her face, and I remember walking away and saying something to the effect of, you know what, in years to come, she'll be known as much as an actor as she is for her music contributions. Because I do think that she's going to, keep on having opportunities to act, and she'll keep on nailing it because she seems to be that kind of a talent.
And then the dude that I possibly hate most in the world right now, Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, he's too talented.
Yeah, can you leave something for the rest of us?
No kidding.
His acting in here is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Probably better than Silver Linings Playbook, and I liked Silver Linings a lot.
He learned to play guitar, and he
learned to play
songs.
Guitar and wrote and sings.
Yeah.
Bloody good looking.
Yeah.
He somehow turns into Sam Elliott's younger brother legitimately in this film and steals Sam Elliott's whole Sam
voice.
Elliott-ness away from him. And he directed the damn thing. And dude, can you leave something for the rest of us?
It's really well directed. There's something to be said about, this year you've seen some folks who've gone from in front of the camera to behind the camera, or even first time filmmakers such as a Bo Burnham that we talked about earlier, or even like is it John Krasinski? Krasinski, like with
for A Quiet Place.
Quiet Place was a great film, but here we're seeing Bradley Cooper, and I really enjoyed a lot of this film. I wouldn't say all of it, but I would say a lot of it. In which the direction was a big part of it, and there's such good scenes. Like,
I thought the whole first half hour is
incredible.
The first act is some of the best 30 minutes on film in the past 5 years. That it just built and built and built to the point where she goes on stage. It was crazy. and swelled at that perfect moment. Yeah.
It would totally. And I just saw the trailer again for it the other day, and I went, you know what? I think I might have to go see this film again, and which is rare. I try not to go too often.
I multiple it up all the time.
Yeah.
I've seen it twice, and I think when it comes
no,
when it goes back out for pre-Oscar, I'm going to definitely see it again.
I think I'll have to. And again, like you're saying, that swell to that point, the moment where she's about to walk on stage is such a great moment, and it's such a great song. When I hear that song on the radio, I think of that scene, and God, if that song does not win Best Oscar for a song, I'm going to be a little.
What song do they nominate?
Shallows for sure. Like that. That is. And granted, the soundtrack is a really good soundtrack, but that moment. And here's the thing: like so often hopefully you get a song that's nominated because it's a good song and has a pivotal moment in the movie. Not always. Sometimes it's a piece of song that is just included with the film. But that
one hits in the moment too.
It is a big scene in the film for that song, and for her, that watching her sort of negotiate what that character is going through in that moment, and to walk through it's an epic moment.
Okay, but how about another one? I'll Never Love Again,
which
is another one that at the end of the film, in the story, he writes it about her.
Yeah.
He writes it for her. And then, fuck it, spoiler alert, he dies.
No, okay. Oh, no.
I can cut it. I can blank it. I'm not going to. Hell it. Everybody should see this damn film. I don't care. Okay. Then she goes out and heartbreakingly sings it for him at his tribute.
Yeah.
I just gave away the movie. That's
okay. See, I don't think it needed to end that way. Like, you're playing the music right now? Accidentally. No. I think you should play the music now. This is a great little moment.
I can't. We'll get busted for copyright infringement.
This is a great moment.
I can't. I had the playlist open on my Spotify just so I could remember the name of the songs, and then I accidentally hit it. And, this has been fun doing screen chat. We'll not be sued off of the internet.
Yeah. But his character, it did not have to go that route. I didn't see it like and. Because here's the thing, like the way they played it, like leading up to it, like he also is talking to her manager or the manager that she's dealing with at that point in time and saying, because of him, she's holding herself back. And of course, he's on a trajectory in which, this might be a natural outcome anyway. But I watching that going, this didn't need to happen. This did not feel like it was a natural part of the story in that sense, other than, I don't know, just because it felt like it was a box they could click for the emotional part of this next song, the song that you're talking about. What about that song? And to me, I was not invested as much as that song as I was The Shallow. Because,
Shallow is my favorite.
Yeah,
but there are other, and I could see it being
such a good song.
I could see it being a thing where they throw up 2 or 3 songs.
Yeah, I can see them throwing up 2, but Shallow's got to win.
Yeah, Shallow is
in my opinion. I hear that song. That sounds like.
Although I also really love "Remember Us This Way." Damn it! I love that soundtrack. I play it all the time.
What's the name of the song where he's heavy on the guitar?
Maybe It's Time.
Maybe It's Time. Yeah. That's a good song too.
Yeah, but they all are. Anyways, another musical themed one that was also really great that I loved this year was Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah,
another late year entrance for award consideration.
I don't think it's going to get much in terms of.
I think Rami Malek might get nominated.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think he was really good. As with biopics, it plays really fast and loose with the actual truth.
Very much, I would say.
And so when I was watching it, I was aware of some of it, and then afterwards I went back and read more and saw that it was really fast and loose. But I loved it because for the first 2/3 of it, we kept having Queen music. We kept having the songs, and you just, I love that song. I love that song. And then the whole last 10 minutes of this podcast is going to be all spoiler alerted anyways. You get to the last third of it.
They come up
to Live Aid. Yeah. And the way the film was naturally constructed, it started at Live Aid, and then I thought that's where they would end. And I thought it would just be them taking the stage, and then they started playing a song. And I'm like, okay, they're going to play one song. And then they played the second song. And then by the third song, I think I elbowed you going, they're doing the whole concert. They did 30 minutes or 25 minutes, whatever it is, worth of they recreated the entire Live Aid performance.
Yeah,
and it
pretty much
is
shot
amazing.
for shot.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's incredible.
Amazing. And that ended up being like my favorite end to a film in the past few years. That's
a good point.
And it is worth, I would see it again just for that last 30 minutes.
Absolutely.
As a matter of fact, if I was walking out of the theater, I might even plunk down $10 to go stand in the back and just watch the last half hour of Bohemian Rhapsody again.
Yeah. Everything you say is the things I agree with. Like, again, Fast and Loose. The very first album I ever bought was The Game by Queen. And so I was kind of, throughout the most of my life, been a casual Queen fan. Like, I was in grade 6 writing a note on everyone, Another One Bites the Dust, in terms of what it means and things like that. As my speech that we had to do to the class that year. So as I was watching, I was like, this seems kind of like it's putting things in different timelines. Like, I don't think this really happened at this place. Just my sort of casual knowledge of it. And so I was kind of like,
there's a lot of that in there. But that's Hollywood biopics.
Yeah, and it really does.
They're telling us, they need to tell a story.
And it really feels glossy. Like, it really feels sort of like that, VH1, listen to the hits.
It's also, it was heavily, like, the surviving band members are all heavily involved in the production. So they were going to this was going to be like a glossed over, sort of a sanitized version of what.
Exactly. That's a nice way to put it, sanitized. But you know what? There's a lot of fun, though, too.
It was a lot of fun. And you know what? Honestly, I don't think I wanted to go see a movie where it just shoveled dirt on shit on Freddie Mercury and shit on their legacy. Because they have a lot of great things, too. And you know what? If a movie's out there to celebrate the great things they did, I can handle that.
Yeah, and here's one thing. And again, this is just a very minor note. But the fact that Queen had a lot of great contributions to film in terms of soundtracks and things like that.
My two favorites would be Flash Gordon and Highlander.
Oh, there we go. Two great ones. And I would have loved to have seen, even if as post credits, like them just having, I don't know, some sort of connections. Because here's a film about Queen, and they're and them. And the thing about Queen, I think I absolutely love about them is that their music does not date. Like, I could listen to their stuff.
Their stuff, yeah. After the movie, I plugged a lot of their stuff back into some of it was already there, and I plugged more into my playlists, and have been listening to a lot more again.
Yeah, and there's a wink and a nod to Bohemian Rhapsody, the fact that they had Mike Myers come in and
that was like my low point of the movie.
Cameo, and
that was my low point of the movie.
Yeah,
I don't even want to talk about that. That one scene made me want to.
So there's a bit of that, but I would have loved to have seen, kind of like as the credits are going, like here's a few.
Here's the legacy.
Of them in film, since we have a film about them. Like, I think that would have been really kind of neat. But again, that's just a very minor quibble, and the performance was fantastic. Yeah. But I honestly don't see it getting much beyond maybe best actor.
I think Rami Malek's in the mix right now. People are talking about for best actor.
I can see that. Yeah,
and it'd be tough.
It's enjoyable.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
It's something I will probably see a second time just for the concert, because that's not going to be as good on a small screen. So
true.
I could see myself going, like, when it lands at the Cheaps, going to see it just to watch that last 30 minutes again. I'll pay $5 for that, no problem.
And the crowd shots of
at Wembley.
Yeah,
it was really
incredible.
That last half hour was really, really well done.
Yeah.
And when you watch, like, on YouTube, you can find VHS copies people have posted up of the original thing that they taped off TV, and it's like step for step.
Yeah, it's so exactly like shot for shot almost. Like, even just the position of like
the beer cups on the and the Pepsi on the piano.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just
it was so bizarre when I was like, holy, like it's pretty, very surreal.
Yeah, a lot of attention was paid to the
details there. So that was really awesome. Well, what do you want? You want to throw out a favorite, or is this something really, or just out of all these ones we've talked about, is there something? It's hard because I had some favorites this year, but they are all like they're all so different from each other that it's hard for me to compare one against the other.
True. Yeah, no, that is very, very true.
There were a lot of great stories behind some of the films, and great stories in some of the films. I'm trying to think,
Let's see what else. What else comes to mind here? I'm just taking a quick look through. Oh, you know what? We talked a bit about documentaries. One, I'll throw this out. There's a Brimstone and Glory. Mm-hmm. I would say if anyone gets a chance to see it, please do. It's a fun little watch. It's basically about the small town in Mexico in which its commerce is all reliant on the making of
Fireworks? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think you told me about this.
Yeah. It's a great little, it's almost like watching like a nature film, but it all takes place in this little town. And then basically the documentary itself is about this weekend where they do a celebrations of fireworks. And it is absolutely crazy because they do things like they have these huge towers. Talked a little bit earlier about the fact that, we live in a time which documentaries can show us stuff that we haven't seen before. Mm-hmm. Well, they have these huge towers in which they have fireworks from the top of it, these big epic big, tall skyscraper kind of stuff. And they have kids up there without any ropes or anything going to kind of fix things, and they're wearing webcams. And so you're up there with them, right? And so you get shots like that. And they also, part of the festival is almost like a running of the bulls where they have these floats of fireworks.
Cool.
And the community comes out to dance in front of them. And it's absolutely insane.
That's crazy.
There's no narrative to it, really. Like
just hey, check this out.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a fun little film.
Yeah, I would say, it's so tough for me. Like, the ones I really loved this year were, like I said, I really loved Mission Impossible. I really loved 8th Grade.
8th Grade is probably my favorite.
I think 8th Grade's probably my favorite of the year. Spider-Verse was really awesome. But
Leave No Trace was great, too. Like, I enjoyed that one.
Leave No Trace?
Yeah, the one with Ben, what's his name?
Did I see this?
I don't think you did, actually.
No, I don't think I did either.
I might have saw this one without you. Former war vet living in basically in a forest with his young daughter. Yeah. What's his name? Ben. Damn. Can't remember his last name.
So that's we still got a few more. Like, we've unfortunately the year's not quite up for us. We're seeing, what's the documentary we're seeing today?
They Shall Not Be Forgotten.
They Shall Not Be Forgotten. The World War I documentary made by Peter Jackson. So that looks pretty interesting. He's used actual real footage and he's managed to enhance it with computers. So it looks kind of interesting. A few others, rounding out the end of the year that we got to see, in the coming days. It's, glitzy, goofy, but Bumblebee I kind of want to see.
I'm looking forward to that.
I've never
seen a Transformer movie.
They haven't made. Yeah, I can't remember if I've seen any of them in theater. I've watched snippets of them and they're usually garbage, but this one apparently is really good and is more in the feel of, like, something that they should have done from the get go. So that Aquaman looks pretty surreal. It looks kind of like Lord of the Rings underwater.
Yeah.
There are people riding sharks in saddles. This looks just crazy enough that I'm going, this is just going to be insane. So I think I might, enjoy a little bit of that.
Mary Poppins.
Like I said, this might be like the slice of pizza as opposed to having the fine steak dinner.
Yeah.
Mary Poppins returns.
Documentary, Love Gilda.
Love Gilda.
Gilda.
Yeah.
So that's going to be coming up.
So I don't know. We'll see those few ones we haven't managed to see before this, but they might end up on our favorites too. But anyways, this has been awesome. We're closing out. It's not been a full year of doing the podcast, but this is the end of the first calendar year of doing it. And this maybe I think this will be our an annual.
There we go.
This was our year in review. So, anyways, thanks for being here today and on many of the episodes this year.
Hey, no, thanks for having me. This has been an absolute ball.
This is
tough gig coming on and talk about movies.
Hopefully, hopefully this continues to roll on, and maybe someday I can even figure out a way to make money doing this, and maybe we can get some comp movies or something like that. So
remember, ask for 2.
There we go. And to anybody out there that's been listening, thanks for listening, and keep on listening, and throw in comments or emails and tell us stuff that you'd like to see or hear rather on the show, possible ideas we could do, and there are more new things coming in the next year. So happy 2018, and keep seeing the movies. And until next time, I don't really have a sign off. So until next time, share the popcorn.